Oh, we're so excited to see you this morning. I keep thinking, wait, is it afternoon? It's still morning. And we're excited to talk to you and provide you a little bit more information about how we think about the proposal submission process on our end, all the details we can possibly share with you to reduce any anxiety or fears or unknowns in the process. What we hope to do, and the reason why we do this webinar, is we hope that folks feel comfortable presenting as a new presenter, a novice presenter, someone who's maybe never presented at a large conference before. We want you to feel confident in submitting a session proposal, that you understand the process, you know what to expect, you know what we're looking for, you know the timeline, all of those pieces, and that if you've done this before, that you know what our process looks like, because it might be a little bit different than someone else's process. So that's what we're hoping to do today, is really just demystify the process for you and answer any questions you might have, because we want your great ideas. We want a diversity of presenters, and we want to make sure that our process is not holding anyone up from getting their proposal submitted. So that's what we're hoping to do today. Really quick overview about what we'll talk about today. We'll do a quick overview on MCAN and the conference at a very high level. And this is just in case you're relatively new to us. Maybe this is the first time you are considering attending the MCAN conference, but you also are thinking about presenting. We want to just tell you a little bit to level the playing field, make sure we've got the same foundation to all operate from. Then I'll turn it over to Lacey, and she's going to talk to you about all the things that happen as it relates to our learning sessions. What are the different types of learning sessions we have? What are the questions we ask you in the RFP? How do we make decisions on who ultimately moves forward to be selected to present during a breakout session or a learning session at our conference? We'll give you a high-level overview of the timeline so you can hold dates and know what to expect. And then we'll have plenty of time for questions that you have that are things that we missed or didn't cover or are specific to you. So that's the plan for today. I promised a quick high-level overview. I didn't take a look at everyone who's here, but in case you're new enough to us that you don't know, or you just want to hear it one more time, as you know, we are the Michigan College Access Network, but we are not just focused on access, or as I like to say, we're focused on the continual access necessary to actually achieve the results that we're hoping for, the completion of a post-secondary degree or certificate. So our mission is to increase college readiness, participation, and completion, and we're particularly focused on working in low-income communities with students, first-generation college-going students, and students of color. We have 4 belief statements that guide our work, and I always think it's important just to make sure that we touch on these so that when you hear Lacey and I talk today about our work, that you know what we mean when we use different parts of this language, when we use words, and that you also know how we're looking at the data and how we're coming to this conversation. The first of those 4 belief statements is that college is post-secondary education. We use the word college interchangeably with post-secondary education. It's easier to say, it's quicker to say, and arguably it levels the playing field and really talks about the value of attaining formal education beyond high school. And that includes post-secondary certificates and academic degrees. The second belief statement that's important to us is that we believe that college is a necessity. There are lots of different ways to look at data and to draw conclusions from numbers, but one thing is true regardless of who looks at these numbers, and no matter how you pull the data, that post-secondary education, based on that definition we just talked about, post-secondary certificates and degrees, dramatically increases a Michigander's economic independence in a knowledge-based economy. And Michigan has been and is in a knowledge-based economy. We transition from a manufacturing-based economy into a knowledge-based economy. And in that shift in an economy, an individual's economic independence is really correlated to their post-secondary educational attainment. The third belief statement is that we believe that college is for everyone. If you've heard us talk before, you hear us talk a lot about how we work as an intermediary, and we work to provide the support to shift systems. And those systems are sometimes cross-sector systems, sometimes they're single silo systems, like in a K-12 or higher ed or workforce system. We work to change systems and really work with you, the people who hold these systems up, who are a part of these systems, to help shift those systems shift the conditions and the infrastructure that ultimately perpetuates inequities across the state, across the country, in communities. And this is true across all systems. And it's really why our work is rooted in systems change, is that we can put programs and band-aids around things forever. But if we don't want to do that work forever, we really need to shift the systems and the conditions that exist across the state and in communities. And the last is that college is a public good. There are, lots of data that shows that an individual benefits when they themselves are accessing and achieving education. And often this shows up in things like wage benefits, access to different opportunities for an individual. It is also true that college and educational attainment is a public good, that if you are not well educated, but you are fortunate enough to live in a community with a high educational attainment rate, you benefit from living in that community on a lot of things that we call like positive externalities, things that folks generally care about in communities that are correlated to increased levels of educational attainment. There's a few that you see on this slide, but things around increased voting and volunteerism, increase in higher rates of literacy, reading to young children, more healthier communities, more access to healthcare, preventative health measures, obesity rates go down, smoking rates go down, all sorts of things across a multitude of topics move in the direction that, generally speaking, Michiganders say is what they're looking for in a community. Walkable communities, well-funded schools, safe communities, communities that are engaged, have a downtown business infrastructure. All of those things are connected to community or exist at higher rates or lower rates if it's something that we're looking to be lower in communities as the educational attainment rate rises in that community. I think that's a pretty cool little piece of the puzzle, but really that summarizes to there are public benefits. There is just not individual benefits. There's also public benefits that come with a college education, and we think that matters. All of this work that we do and that we bring you all together to lift up the great work you're doing and challenge you to go even further and farther is in support of Michigan's 60 by 30 goal. This is also MCAN's goal. And that goal is to increase the percent of Michigan residents who hold those degrees and post-secondary certificates to 60% by 2030. This is not a data presentation, but the thing I'll say to you is that 60% is couched in the labor market projections. So that's where that number comes from. Folks ask us that all the time. We have a long way to go. We're making strides, but we've got a long way to go. And that's why we need all your help. That's why we bring folks together every year at the conference to get folks energized and put more fuel in that gas tank as you work to do this work in your communities. So what we're here to talk about today is that, bringing you all together for our annual conference. I hope that you're coming either way and that you're also thinking about submitting a breakout session and you're bringing all your friends from your community as well. But this year, things will look a little bit different. We will be in a new environment, and we're excited about that. So we're taking the state of college access up to Traverse City, and we'll be at the Grand Traverse Resort. We'll be there for 3 years. Our hope is to sort of move the conference around to these cities across the state in 3-year blocks. It helps you plan ahead, and it also helps us just know a venue. This will be our 15th annual conference. It's November 3rd and 4th. You cannot yet register, which means you've got all kinds of time to think about those great learnings, the great programming, the systems change efforts, the cross-sector collaborations that we want you to think about to submit for proposals. So make sure to be on the lookout for registration, but also pay attention that we'll be in a new location in Traverse City this year. I am going to talk about our intended audience, and then I'll shift it over to Lacey. If you are new to the conference, or you're not new, but you've never really taken in who are the other folks that are at the conference, we have around 850 attendees at our conference. And those folks span a very wide range. If you know MCAN's work, we are working in the higher ed, the K-12, the workforce sector with adult student educators focused on adults, the high school space, the community space. We're working across a variety of sectors, which means those folks all come together, maybe one time only, at a state level to come to this conference. So we wanted to give you a sense, if you were not aware, who is in the room, who could be in the room for your session, who is your audience that you want to speak to. Your sessions don't need to speak to all of these folks, but know that these are potential listeners that could attend as you think about the content that you love to talk about. And as you would suspect, these folks span the sectors that we support. So K-12 educators and administrators, higher education practitioners and professionals, philanthropic leaders, adult education professionals, workforce development professionals, government employees, policymakers, and advocates, and then the sort of catch-all folks just doing really great college access work, often in community-based organizations and nonprofits across your communities and the state. So that's who you can expect to be around, folks that could be in the audience for your session. But again, think about this as the possibilities of who you're talking to, not a recipe of all the folks that you need to work towards addressing. I am going to pause and turn it over to Lacey, who's going to talk to us a little bit more about the sessions themselves, all the questions we ask, and all of those good details. Take it away, Lacey.
Thanks, Jamie. As a reminder, as we're about halfway through the presentation, Maura had mentioned you can raise your hand at any point in time if you have a question, or put those questions in the chat and she can kind of elevate those to us so we can answer them as we're going. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the learning session types. So this year we have 3 different types of learning sessions. Those sessions, as if you've attended the conference before, you know we have a traditional breakout session that's typically 50 minutes, and then we have a lightning lab. That's the shorter 25 minutes. You're in a larger room at tables with multiple sessions happening at one time. New this year is the networking session. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So I'm going to go back to traditional sessions. These are a little bit longer, right? Maybe a little bit heavier content or more that you'd like to share. And it's a mixture of the classroom style and a theater setting, right? So you're up presenting and then you've got an audience in front of you. The lightning lab is designed to be quicker, right? There are multiple people in the room, again, those round table settings. And so you have folks moving about looking for specific topics during that time frame. So this is a shorter session. And when you think about the content that you might want to present to the conference goers, you're thinking about, that time frame as well, not just who is the audience, but also how much time do I need to really do justice in presenting this idea that I have. Um, and then this new networking session we're really excited about is a 50-minute session that is very interactive and a round table seating type of situation, maybe a cocktail table setup, where you maybe have something in your network, something in your work that is a question that you're constantly getting, right? Or maybe a focus point right now in higher education or K-12 or within your community that you'd really like to gather some thought partners and have an open dialogue and conversation around. And so you yourself, the thought, and Jamie, you can correct me on this, is that you would be in maybe leading this with questions and thinking a little deeper about this topic specifically. So the request for proposal is just a teeny bit different for this specific session. I think we have one additional question that we ask you, or one different question for this one, but you would still be submitting the traditional RFP. All right, so we'll talk next about how do you choose, right, which session to pick. And I covered some of this in the previous slide, but how much content, right? How deep are you hoping to go with that? How many resources do you have that you want to share? Are you hoping to get feedback and thoughts from attendees, right? So that might be a good networking opportunity. Did you implement or scale a pilot that you want to share with folks that maybe went really well? Are you looking to present to a smaller room or a larger space, right? So what size audience do you think needs to hear this? And that's important when considering that audience piece to all of you. So if you're thinking that this might hit, K-12 really well, and I think there's going to be high interest, you might want a larger space for that and more time. Will you have multiple presenters? So when we think about the traditional session, you can have multiple presenters. With a lightning lab, we like to limit that to one presenter, just given the space and how many people are moving and the noise level and all those things. And then again, thinking about the networking session, is there a topic you're really looking to hear from other folks in the network about to have that true thought partnership around where folks can share their expertise, maybe ask questions, and then if they do know of research or findings that are happening, could support with that. So now we'll take a look at the overview of the request for proposals. So you're going to have presenter details first. So we'll communicate most often with the primary presenter. So whoever is listed as the primary presenter is going to get that information from us. And that information is going to most likely come over the summer. So something that you want to consider is if I'm in K-12 and I don't check my email over the summer, right? Maybe I should put an email that I'm going to be checking more regularly. Or be intentional about going and logging into my email so I'm getting that communication from MCAN. You can add additional presenters. We suggest no more than three, and as mentioned, just one for the Lightning Lab. If your presenter details change after your submission, you will be able to go in and add those. So we do see sometimes, right, someone has a time conflict and they need to remove a presenter, or they're adding someone because they have some additional content that they want to bring in. You'll have access to be able to edit those things as we move through the process. All right, and then we move into the proposal questions. So you'll be looking at what type of session, you'll be identifying that. You'll come up with a title. I think that sometimes folks get hung up on this piece, or we see that kind of hiccup of like, what do I call it? So definitely be thinking through that, think through that with your other presenters. And then identify that session type that you would like to present on. And then your focus of the networking session. So where are you going to kind of narrow in as you present? You'll then write an abstract, and it always starts with, in this session, participants will, right? What are you hoping folks are going to gain from this, right? Think about that audience again, bring that back into this space. Who am I thinking is going to attend this session, and what am I hoping they're going to get out of this? And that should be helpful for you all in being able to write that abstract. We're looking for 4 to 6 sentences. Every year there's a variety, right? Some folks will write a few sentences and some people will give us a couple paragraphs. We'll work to help pare those down. But try to be concise with exactly what are you hoping that folks are going to learn and take away from this session type. And then that helps the audience better understand, is this a session for me or not? Right? We've all most likely been to a conference of some kind at this point. And when we're looking at those summaries, they really do help us determine ultimately. You can have a really cool and catchy title, but then if the abstract doesn't meet that title, right, there can be a conflict of should I go or not go. So just be clear about what you're hoping to present on and what you're hoping folks will take away. And then there'll be a detailed description of the session as well as an optional upload for materials. So if you have a worksheet that you're hoping folks are going to be utilizing or images, perhaps there's like an actual Excel document you've used for some form of data collection you want everyone to have access to. You'll also have that opportunity to upload the materials within your proposal. All right, now for evaluation. All right, we are particularly interested in sessions that involve community partnerships and local networks, connecting college to career workforce, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, justice, policy and advocacy, supporting adult learners, supporting different students with different forms of identity, um, practical takeaways, so something somebody could pick up and then take to their college, their high school, their community. Something that could be scalable, something that maybe everybody's doing, but how did you scale it to enhance it? That it's timely in this moment, right? What are the hot topics that are happening in all of our education ecosystem, and how might we be doing something that is meeting or have an understanding around one of those important topics? Um, maybe it's a space where we're providing clarity, right? Maybe we're all struggling to still understand how does this particular Reconnect scholarship work, right? And this session kind of helps you understand maybe the history and the development and then the data now around how exciting that scholarship is. And then interest to intended audience. So just thinking about your specific audience and what might you know that that audience is particularly interested in at this time. And then potential impact and intervention and strategy, right? So how are we making impact within communities, within the schools, within the state? And what maybe intervention or strategy did you develop that you think is high impact at this time? All right, so we'll talk a little bit about the timeline, so you all have awareness. All right, so as you know, the request for proposal is already open. If you are on our listserv, you should have received emails with that link. I think we'll also have a QR code on our next slide that you can grab if you don't have the email. You can head to our website as well. And then the submission deadline, this is probably the more important deadline, right, is the June 30th. You'll want to make sure that you submit your request for proposal by then, and then that gives us plenty of time to review them. Historically, we've had quite a few come in, significantly more than we're able to have present. And so it's important to be on time so that you have that equal level of consideration in your submission. And then August 7th is when we anticipate that we'll be able to communicate decisions, which gives you a few months before you would know to prepare, right? Maybe do some work with co-presenters if needed, but then also know well before the conference that you're presenting. There will be 2 training webinars that'll be conducted for accepted presenters. I don't think we have the dates for those quite yet, but you'll know that we'll have those available just to help you work through the process of preparing for your presentation. All right. So we'd love for you to think about submitting a proposal today. This is the QR code that links you to CVent and the RFP space, but we also want to take this opportunity to open it up for questions that you might have at this time. Anything about the process, the audience, the timeline, really any questions that you might have.
And then I'd also like to add on to that RFP guide. So that includes sort of the overview that we went over today, as well as all of the questions that you'll be asked is linked in the chat. That's again the RFP guide. And then there's also a link in the chat to the actual proposal submission page where you can find the RFP guide linked again there for further reference. So that proposal submission page is a great, go ahead and like bookmark that. Jessica has asked in the chat, is there a theme to this year's conference? Jamie, do you want to answer that question?
Carrie, I'm trying to unmute and I'm moving us forward in slides. And this slide is a better slide to be on. We do have a theme. It is not yet released, but because it is, because you all are my besties, I've decided I'm happy to let you know what that is. We will be focusing on really this public good piece of the puzzle. We know, I imagine as well as you all do, that there is a need to shift culture across the state as we think about making that shift. I was in a session the other day where someone said Michigan has been ready to be a knowledge-based economy, but the citizens will not move into that space. We are reluctant to become what we are destined to become, and there's no other option. And that really is around culture and sort of shifting, sort of somewhat of like a hearts and minds around what it looks like and what it means to be a Michigander. And I think that's closely tied to folks' DNA. And so we are looking at a conference theme that is thinking about how college has really been a part of how Michigan has become who they are and who we will become and continue to become, and that it's not new. It's not that college only matters as we move into into a knowledge-based economy, that college is what got us here. If you think about the history of MSU as a land grant institution and the foundation of MSU extension offices that exist in every single one of your communities and the role that they play in water quality, and jobs that surround all of the Great Lakes and the other bodies of water in Michigan, farming and agricultural advancements, climate advancements, in addition to the things we often think about around healthcare and technology and all of these other spaces. That again, even those jobs that exist that don't require a high school or a college degree, they often exist, and or the services we engage in often exist and have existed because of the science, the engineering, the technology, the advancement that comes along with the learnings in a college degree. Or a post-secondary certificate. So Maura dropped the theme, college, Michigan's foundation, Michigan's future. That really is our focus. We love, love, love when your breakout sessions sort of align to that, but it also is pretty hard sometimes to do that. What we don't want you to say is, if my session isn't about the public good of college and education, does that mean it's not good enough? No, it doesn't. If every session was about that, you all would just be very annoyed by the end of it. So we still need all of the best practice again around cross-sector alignment, systems change, innovative programming and practice, data and research and findings, what's supporting our priority populations, and where are we seeing priority populations that are being served well, and what's working, what's effective, how can we learn from those pieces. So we still want all of that good session topic, but where it makes sense for you to think about this public good piece of the puzzle, we'd love for you to think about it.
This is also a great opportunity to say to you as well that as in the last 2 years of conference, if you've been with us, we also have the pitch competition running this year. So this is, and I'm just going to read it exactly so that I don't make any mistakes. These are like scalable, high impact college attainment strategies or ideas. This doesn't need to be something that you have already implemented. It can be an idea that you think could be taken to scale. And what happens is we get submissions from all over the state for these ideas or these pre-existing attainment strategies. You submit an interest form, and then our team will like be very hands-on with you and help you submit your video beyond the interest form. And then we choose 3 finalists to be on stage with us at the conference. In the final closing session, you give a 5-minute pitch to the entirety of the conference. It's very exciting. It's very high energy. There are some monetary gains attached to live voting that is done by our audience at the end of that pitch competition on the last day of conference. So if you are, we would love to have you as a speaker, and if you've got a great idea or you've implemented, or you've got a great idea that you've been sitting on and you've been thinking about doing, we would also love to hear that for the pitch competition. I think some of the most innovative, practical work comes from you all, comes from the people in the field. And so we would love to hear about that. We would love to elevate it. We would love to get you in front of, 700 plus people who might be very interested in working with you on this. And the great thing about the winnings from this is that they are not attached to any reporting. And so these can just be ideas. It is okay. We are not going to hold you accountable for scaling it to size. We want to get creativity, get innovation, get inspiration out there. So there will be an email released about that. Actually, might be in your inbox already today about this year's pitch competition. But we would love to hear from you all on that, because I think if you're doing a session, then you've probably already got a great idea. Please feel free to email us anytime. We are conference@micollegeaccess.org. That is for RFPs, that is for pitch competition, that is for registration, that is for hotel overnights. Jamie said early on that conference registration is not out yet. Look for that in the beginning of June. It will be coming out. However, the RFP is open. That's why you're all here. You can find the link in the chat. And you'll also get it from us in probably several more emails between now and June 30th, as well as that pitch competition submission. So thank you so much for joining us. Jamie or Lacey, anything else from you too?
Nothing else to add, except we're excited to see your submissions.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here today and learning more from us.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.